The philosophy of AI has two paths that you can take. The first one is the metaphysics of AI. That's when you're dealing with questions such as, okay, what is actually artificial intelligence? Can it actually become conscious? Like, can it become self-aware? Could it ever become self-aware? Is it able to have consciousness the way that we human beings have consciousness? Can it obtain qualia? Right? What even is consciousness? What even is free will? The second path that you can take in the philosophy of AI is more along the lines of the purpose of AI. That is, the telos, as Aristotle might call it. What is the purpose behind doing AI? Right? So you're taking more of a pragmatic outlook to AI. And you even ask yourself questions such as, okay, what are the implications of having such a powerful technology like AGI, whatever AGI is, whatever ASI is? You're focused more on the practical and the things that you can measure. That is, what is the threshold that determines whether we reached AGI or whether we've reached ASI? You're also focused more on like the economics behind AI. This is the type of field where you need to make a lot of predictions. How is the economy going to work once we have something like artificial superintelligence? How's that even going to look like? How is it, like day-to-day life going to look like? What are the things that AI could really help us solve? Right? So that's the second category, the purpose of AI. And I've seen this trend in a lot of YouTube channels, like this pattern in a lot of philosophy of AI channels. Some channels lean more towards the metaphysics of AI, while other channels lean more towards like the purpose of AI or the economics behind AI. The channels that deal more with like the purpose of AI and the practical use of AI and the implications of it and what's it going to look like in the future and that sort of stuff, those channels tend to be a bit more popular. And although I'm not going to lie, the metaphysics behind AI is definitely something that really interests me a lot. And if you're watching this, it might even interest you as well. Luckily for you, in this channel, we're going to be exploring both sides. I don't want to explore one side without the other. Because I feel like they're both intrinsically linked to each other. I feel like the metaphysics of AI and the purpose behind doing AI in general are very connected to each other. Because like I said before, in the metaphysics of AI, we're talking about consciousness. That's the key right there. That's the central theme. And consciousness has been talked about for thousands of years. Sorry if you're hearing maybe a little bit of rain, because it's raining where I'm at right now. And it's actually kind of calming, to be honest. I like the rain. It's actually like recording podcasts when it's raining. It allows me, the rain, I don't know, the rain is just, number one, I like sleeping when it's raining, and I like thinking when it's raining, and I like doing these podcasts as a way to talk to myself and document my journey and reflect while it's raining. I don't know, the rain is just, I don't know, it's beautiful in its own way for certain moods that I'm in. So, sorry if you heard a couple of clips. I'm just trying to turn off the notifications because that was my Slack messages. But anyways, getting back to the topic at hand. The metaphysics of AI deals with consciousness, and consciousness is something that's been talked about since like forever, even before AI, before like modern day technology. But somehow AI, artificial intelligence, brings back this ancient school of thought, this ancient, not school of thought, but this ancient like philosophical discipline of consciousness. And this is particularly a field in philosophy known as philosophy of mind. Philosophy of mind studies, well, the philosophy behind mind is pretty self-explanatory, behind consciousness. and it tries to understand the self. It tries to understand, okay, what even is the self? Can we even locate the self? What does that even mean, to locate the self? Right? So, I mean, this goes back to, like, again, this is ancient, because the first thing when you begin to exist is that you, like, as soon as you begin to exist, you're aware of your own existence, right? You're conscious, you're self-aware. That's the very first thing that, the very first thing of all existence is that. It's literally experience, fed by consciousness. And interestingly enough, since it's literally the first thing and the thing we're doing at all times while you're listening to this, while you're thinking, it's something that you're doing at all times from the moment you begin to exist, and without, like, non-stop, to this moment, right now, you listening to this podcast and thinking about the words that I'm saying to you, every single thing, to the point, up to the point where you're at right now, is governed by consciousness. And we don't even understand it. We have no idea what it is. We have no idea how to even, like, we don't even have any idea how to begin to talk about this field. And we're so quick to say that, oh yes, ChatGPT is conscious, it's self-aware. Or yes, eventually technology is going to be so advanced that we're going to create an AI that is self-aware. How naive. How naive. And I'm not trying to say this to sound like I know what I'm talking about, because I don't. That's the whole point. None of us know what we're talking about when it comes to consciousness, right? So it's not an easy subject. It's the hardest subject of all sciences out there. It's the hard problem of consciousness. I challenge you to Google it right now. Google the hard problem of consciousness. It's literally the hardest problem out of all academic disciplines out there. It's not quantum mechanics. It's not quantum gravity theory, as hard as those problems in physics are. It's not some kind of unsolved mathematical problem. It's not some kind of problem in biology. No, the hardest problem out of all scientific disciplines is consciousness, because we don't even know how to begin to talk about it. So before we naively say that, oh yes, AI can eventually become self-aware, first let's explore our presuppositions, our philosophical presuppositions. Why do we think that? Ask yourself, why do you think that AI can actually become self-aware eventually? Why do you think that is the case? And a couple of things might come to mind. Some of you might say things like, oh, well, it's mainly because, well, I mean, we're machines in a way, right? Our brains are machines, and AI, in a way, it's influenced by the brain, right? Neural networks. So, we've evolved organically through millions of years of evolution, and here we are, we're self-aware and we're intelligent, and our brains work similar to a computer and vice versa. Like, I mean, AI, the development of AI was influenced through, neural networks, which was influenced through neuroscience and our understanding of the brain. But listen to yourself. Right there, you're already assuming another school of thought in philosophy. It's known as naturalism or materialism. And this philosophical school of thought focuses more on, so what it says mainly, it's that the only thing that exists in the world is the material world, right? So that is the only thing that we can actually understand and we can actually know and come to know of, and that's the only thing that there is. So when we talk about the fundamental nature of reality, we're saying that the fundamental nature of reality is just material stuff. We just need to understand what that fundamental material stuff is. But there is nothing else other than material stuff. I'm not saying this is wrong. again, I'm not trying to, maybe later on I'll critique materialism a bit better. But I'm just trying to help you guys understand your presuppositions, because I don't want you guys making the mistake of like naively saying these things, and then all of a sudden some kind of professional philosopher comes to you and say, oh, well, you're assuming materialism right there, and actually that's false, because the philosophical implications of the double slit experiment in quantum mechanics tells us otherwise. That's something that a philosopher might say, and many philosophers actually take very seriously, and some physicists take very seriously, including the father of quantum mechanics like Max Planck. This is not pseudoscience. I'm not talking about the woo-woo, new age, quantum healing and that kind of stuff. No, that's pseudoscience. I'm not talking about pseudoscience. I'm talking about real philosophy of mind. And when I'm talking about metaphysics, I'm not talking about opening up your seven, how many chakras there are. That's not metaphysics. I'm talking about real, serious metaphysics, academic metaphysics and philosophy that is done in many institutions. I'm talking about real philosophy of science and its implications in physics and science and quantum mechanics, and the interpretations of certain results in quantum mechanics. And there are interpretations in quantum mechanics that tells us that maybe reality is not so material as we thought. And there are philosophers and scientists out there that are starting to realize this. And there's been debates going on for a couple of years now related to this topic, for the last decade really. And again, I'm not a physicist, and I am not a professional philosopher. So I am very aware of the presuppositions that I hold, and I'm also very aware of the things that I don't know. And I just want people to also be aware of these things, because I don't want people to naively make the mistake that, oh yeah, of course, everything is just material. I mean, that's kind of what science is all about, right? I mean, philosophy, who needs that, right? Like, philosophy is dead, right? Didn't Stephen Hawking say that in some kind of documentary I saw a couple of years back? No. I mean, bro, Stephen Hawking is not a philosopher. And I already talked about this, by the way, in a previous podcast called Why Tech Needs Philosophy Now. And in that podcast, I don't just mean tech, I also mean science in general. Modern day science and technology really lacks philosophy. I don't want you to be like that. We're entering a new age, and it's a very weird age. We're entering an age of, freaking AI, man. It's crazy. Like, we have a computer that can actually talk to us in real time. Isn't that crazy? And these models are improving. Philosophy is going to need a lot. We're going to be needing a lot of philosophy in these next couple of years, both in the metaphysical side and both in the practical side, right? Not just, so like I said before, right? There's two paths to the philosophy of AI. There's the metaphysics of AI, and then there's the purpose of AI. That is, what are the implications of it, and what are the economics behind AI? How is the economy and society going to function, and what our day-to-day lives is going to look like? So, we're going to need a lot of philosophy, and the ethics behind AI, man. Oh, that's another part. The safety of AI. That's something where we're now going to have to touch upon ethics and talk about things like utilitarianism, deontological ethics, virtue ethics, all these things, analyzing which ethical frameworks are the right ones or the most accurate ones or the better for society. That's part of philosophy right there. Oh, that's part of ethics. No. Ethics comes from philosophy. Philosophy originally means philansophia, which means love of wisdom. And we're seeking wisdom in order to understand how to live the good life, how we ought to live as well, which is what ethics is all about as well. So, yeah, I mean, that's philosophy, man. Like, we cannot separate philosophy from anything else, because philosophy is always going to be the grounding. But anyway, I already talked about that before. So, understanding your presuppositions is going to be very important in this new age that we're in, and this new AI renaissance that we're in. And we're entering a new age that is going to be a bit weird. I'm not trying to say this as in trying to start a new hype thing. No, this is there's hype, and then there's hype, right? There is hype, oh yeah, This is like a new way to make money online and that sort of thing. Or there's the kind of hype of like, oh yeah, let's jump on this trend, and months later the trend starts to die off and you look for a new trend. This is not that kind of hype. This is the kind of hype that is really going to take off, and it's already taking off, by the way. It already took off, and it's going to take off even more. It's the type of trend that is going to change the way we think about thinking in general. It's going to change the way we learn. It's going to change the way we research. This is already happening. Software developers are starting to change the new thing called vibe coding, right? Vibe coding is where, I don't like that name, to be honest, vibe coding. I know it's a very it's like a meme term, but vibe coding is like, it's a lot more serious than just vibe coding, right? Vibe coding is probably just you maybe telling ChatGPT to code you something, and then you just try it out, you get an error, and then you just copy and paste the error back to ChatGPT or Cursor, whatever, or Windsurf, whatever AI coding platform you're using, and then you're just vibing, you're letting the AI do the work for you. That's vibe coding, but it's a lot more serious than that, because true coders, true coders that are using AI, true software developers and true engineers know how to work with AI and not just let AI do everything for you. But that's another topic. I don't want to talk about that right now. What I'm trying to say is that we're entering a new way of doing things that I don't think people are seeing it. And people are talking about how so AI is just making us stupider, it's making us dumber, it's just making us... And to a certain extent, they're right. Yes. But this is nothing new. The internet has always made people stupid. YouTube has always made people stupid. Instagram has always made people stupid. TikTok has always made people stupid. Social media platforms literally destroy our levels of focus. Like, our focus is so limited nowadays because we've trained our brain to get dopamine from 10-second reels about cats dancing randomly. You know what I'm saying? Anything can make us dumber. And this has always been true. This has been true not just in technology, it also has been true in day-to-day lives, in food, in the food that we eat, in the junk food that we eat, in the gossip that we participate in the people that we surround ourselves with. Anything can contribute to stupidity. And that's the truth. I already talked about this before. Technology is not the problem. The problem is how we use it. The problem is the intention behind the technology. So, and this, I'm tired of saying this, but it's true. It's not, the technology is not the bad thing. It's the intention behind it, because one individual might just use ChatGPT to do your homework for you, but another individual might intelligently use a combination of Cursor and ChatGPT to maybe build some kind of flashcard system, to vibe code a flashcard system that can allow the individual to take all the information, use ChatGPT to intelligently distribute the information into flashcards, and apply some kind of spaced repetition algorithm so that you can intelligently memorize or learn whatever topic it is that you're trying to learn. Like if you're learning history, for example, you could take maybe 5 pages of that text. I could probably use AI, use computer vision, take pictures of my textbook that I'm reading, and then transcribe it, and then pass that information into an LLM like ChatGPT. If the context window is too large, then I could maybe vectorize that information, and using retrieval augmented generation, I could intelligently have an LLM turn that LLM into an AI tutor, basically. So anything that I don't understand, or the context that I'm lacking in understanding a specific text, like a very complicated history book, for example, I could have the LLM, who already has context in history, to understand the chapter that I'm reading and help me understand the parts that I just, well, don't understand. And then, use that AI to create a flashcard system, to create flashcards and, apply some kind of, for those who are, nerds and studying techniques, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about when it comes to space repetition. So it's a common technique, space repetition, where like you intelligently, like you have a study session where you like showing yourself flashcards, and you randomly like flip the flashcards and it asks you a question, and you try to recall that information, and then you see if you got it right, and then you kind of like prioritize each flashcard in a certain order. I'm not really into the whole flashcard thing, but I'm just giving an example, right? That is really cool. Like, that is potential right there. Compare that to the individual who's just using ChatGPT to do their homework. But you see, this is nothing new. This is nothing new. Think about it. This has always been happening. Like, before ChatGPT, people just paid people to do your homework. Very curious, though. I wonder how those, like, essay services, I'm pretty sure they're out of business now that people just have ChatGPT. Or they might have just, I don't know, evolved their businesses and added AI to it. Who knows? Point is, like, people have already been doing this before. People paid for individuals to do your essay for you. Like, that's nothing new. The human beings are always going to find if you're lazy. Like, here's the thing. Technology in general doesn't make you worse or better. It just enhances the attributes you already possess. So if I'm lazy, then technology is just going to make me even more lazy. If I'm ambitious, then technology is going to make me more ambitious. If I'm productive, technology is going to make me way more productive. If I'm an autodidact, then technology is going to really help me learn everything I want to learn, right? And that's the key thing about technology. It's neutral. It doesn't care about you. It's not self-aware because it doesn't care about you. It doesn't have that context. It doesn't have the same emotional qualia experiences that we human beings possess. And yes, I am talking now about metaphysics of AI. And I am not a materialist, so I do not believe that everything is just material, but I am not going to dive into that because that's a whole other topic, and I do not want to dive into that right now because, this podcast would just end up being hours and hours long. But it's definitely something I'm going to be talking about later on. But point is, technology is neutral. It doesn't care about you. It's not self-aware. It doesn't have it doesn't care about you. It's just technology. It's neutral. It just enhances the things that you already possess. Like, if I am I don't know, if I am a chef, then I'm probably going to use a knife to cook, right? To cook and for food. If I am a psychopath killer, then I'm probably going to use that knife for something else. You know what I'm saying, right? So, technology in general, tools in general are neutral. They don't care about you. They just enhance the qualities you already possess. And same thing with AI. AI is no different. AI is just a tool. A very, very creative tool, a very intelligent tool. But at the end of the day, it's just a tool. And AI only enhances the attributes that you already possess. So if you're lazy, then AI is just going to make you more lazy. You're going to end up using AI to help you do your homework. Not help you do your homework, sorry. You're gonna use AI to do your homework for you. There's a difference. Or if you're a good student, then you're gonna intelligently use AI to improve your studying. I would just use AI, turn AI into in fact, I'm actually gonna be doing this in my Python series later on. I'm doing a series, right? Not just this podcast, but I'm also doing a series on programming, Python, practical AI use. Like, actually using the technology, understanding the technology, and leveraging it for doing a bunch of cool stuff, right? And I actually want to create a RAG system to intelligently and efficiently learn anything we want, right? That is awesome. I think that's awesome. Use AI to transform the way we think and learn about stuff. So, that's important. I cannot stress that enough. That's very important. People are, I don't know, I feel like people are still not grasping it for some strange reason. They're focused too much on, I don't know, Doomsday AI, Terminator AI, that kind of stuff. Maybe because it's more cinematic or whatever it is. But, or like, you know, the pessimism behind AI and how AI is making us more stupid. And it's like, it's nothing new. It's nothing new. We've been doing all of this all along, way before ChatGPT. Get over it. Let's move on and let's actually try to find solutions. Real solutions that have nothing to do with attacking AI. So, now I can go on and out like hours talking about this, but getting back to to what we were talking about earlier with like the metaphysics behind AI. Like I said at the beginning of this podcast, we have two paths, right? The metaphysics of AI and the purpose of AI. And like I said before, it's important for us to understand our presuppositions, so we don't make the same common mistakes that almost everyone makes. And when it comes to materialism, I'm not saying that's wrong, but at least be able, like, have the guts to research deeply into materialism. Is materialism something that I actually agree upon, right? So what are the philosophers, what are the scientists that defend materialism? View it from a philosophical lens. Don't just accept it just because you saw some kind of documentary from Neil deGrasse Tyson who told you that, oh yeah, so science is the only thing that matters, it's the only thing, it's the foundation of all truth, and just no. Actually do your research. Dive, because this is a very serious discipline, a very serious academic discipline, and people like Neil deGrasse Tyson, no offense, and like people like Lawrence Krauss, I probably could pronounce that. I think I butchered that name. I'm so sorry. Lawrence Krauss, I think. Yeah, Lawrence Krauss, including Stephen Hawking, for example, have very little understanding of philosophy, or at least they don't take it that serious, which is a big mistake. Scientists like Einstein, Max Planck, Isaac Newton, they took philosophy very seriously, and we should too. We shouldn't become purists. Now, what do I mean by purist? People who think that only a specific academic discipline is their specific academic discipline is the most important or the most foundational out of all, if that makes sense. There are philosophical purists out there who think that philosophy is the only thing that matters. There are physics purists out there who thinks that physics is the only thing that matters. There are math purists. Oh boy, the math purists who believe that math is the only thing that matters, right? Don't become a purist, because things are a lot more complicated and messy than you expect it to be. As soon as you think that everything makes sense to you, that's when things don't really that's when the next day things just fall apart. Life is messy, and science is messy, and just learning in general is messy. Knowledge in itself is messy. But the beautiful thing about it is that even though things cannot be isolated and should not be isolated, everything is interrelated. Everything is beautifully connected. This is why we shouldn't treat academic disciplines as something isolated. Oh, I'm going to study this and then this in its own isolation. No, everything is connected. Every single subject is somehow somehow connected to some other subject, right? And mathematics is connected to physics is connected to chemistry, which is connected to biology, which is connected to psychology, which is connected to economics, which is connected to history, which is connected to language. It's all connected. We just have to understand. We have to become very good at seeing those connections. The problem is that our current, education system, trained us to see these academic disciplines as isolated disciplines and not as some interconnected web of knowledge. So we have to untrain the bad habits that we adopted from our current education system. So, yeah. And I don't really have much else to say. I'm trying to keep these things 30 minutes long, and I talked about a lot. The last couple of 30 minutes, I talked about how we have two paths of just summarizing everything we talked about so far, and I will continue expanding upon these topics in future episodes, or whatever you want to call it, this in future podcasts, basically. But as a summary, we talked about how, okay, AI, the philosophy of AI specifically, philosophy of AI has two paths. You got your metaphysics of AI, where you're dealing with consciousness, free will, really deep questions that you should not take for granted and really dive deep into. And then you got the practical AI, your purpose of AI, right? Where you're dealing with like, okay, so how do we like measure AI progress? When do we have AGI or ASI? And what are the implications of AI? What are the economic implications of AI? How will our society look like? How will our day-to-day lives look like? So we talked about those two aspects, and we talked about how those two aspects are very connected with each other, and we should not separate them or treat them in isolation. Because like I said before, there are channels out there that talk about only one specific area, and other channels that talk about the other area, but they rarely talk about how they're connected. And it's important to understand how they're connected, because like I said before, we shouldn't treat these academic disciplines as isolated disciplines. We need to stop thinking about knowledge in that way. We're entering a very new, weird age of AI and information, where we're like, the problem is no longer that we don't have enough information. The problem is that we actually have too much information that we need to synthesize it. And the only way we can synthesize is by actually being aware of how different disciplines are connected to each other. And AI can actually help us with that as well, by the way. I believe that it can. But we have to do something about it. Talking negatively about AI, saying that it's only making us stupider, I don't think that's going to help. And saying things like, oh yes, AI is self-aware, naively, just because you didn't really take your time to do some research in philosophy, or at least be aware of your presuppositions, that is also not helping. Saying, being an AI doomer, where like, you know, the apocalypse is coming and AI is just going to destroy us all, that's also not helping. None of these things are helping. It's good for movies, for cinema, but it's not really helping. So my final piece of advice is, number one, study philosophy. If you're going to get into AI, study deeply philosophy, specifically philosophy of mind, consciousness, free will, right? Ultimate reality, metaphysics. Study quantum mechanics. Study how, you don't need to understand the heavy math behind quantum mechanics, even I don't, but try to understand the different interpretations of quantum mechanics. The different philosophical interpretations of quantum mechanics. Not the whole quantum healing woo-woo new age 99 chakras whatever thing. No, that's not science, and that's not philosophy. I'm talking about real science and real philosophy. Study those topics, and also study economics, and study how AI is going to affect our current economic models. Do that, and think about at least, how we can solve the problem of excessive and information overload with AI, and really try to see what is going on instead of just hearing all the buzzwords and the unnecessary anxiety behind this new technology that a lot of people are just afraid of for whatever reason. Well, I know the reason is because people are afraid of the unknown, right? Human beings have always been afraid of the unknown. But you don't need to be that. You don't need to be afraid. You don't. You just need to cut through the noise. And you cut through the noise when you ask the right questions. So with that being said, ask the right questions. And you'll be able to cut through the noise, and you'll have a much clearer worldview, especially in this new AI renaissance that we're in. With that being said, thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed. Like, subscribe, share this. If this is, subscribe if this is something that you're really interested in, because we're diving deep into the entire AI landscape. We're not just talking about the philosophy, but we're also coding as well. If you're a philosophical engineer like me as well, then you're in the right place. That being said, done.